We landed late afternoon. The kids were hyped up on ginger ale and airport pretzels, and I was running on caffeine and delusion. San Diego wasn't far, but I booked a car instead of surprising her straight from the airport. Timing had to be precise, not too eager, not too random. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was more like a precision strike. I had memorized the hotel layout weeks ago. Floor plan on TripAdvisor, lobby shots on Yelp, the works. I knew which side her room was likely on because I'd seen a blurry selfie she sent 3 days prior with the bay in the background. It was always the tiny things, wasn't it? The things no one bothers to hide because they think you're too distracted to notice. I let the kids nap in the room I booked across the street. Quiet place, decent view. I didn't need them involved in whatever the hell this was about to turn into. I told them we were going to surprise Mommy at breakfast tomorrow. My daughter asked if she could give her the drawing she made. That part stung more than I'd expected. Then I waited. At 6:03 p.m., the lights in the corner suite blinked on. A figure moved past the curtains. Female silhouette. Her. But that's not the part that got me. What got me was the shadow that followed. A tall, male shape. Slow. Casual. Like you belonged there. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't panic. I watched. Then I reached into my duffel and pulled out a small item I hadn't used in 2 years, a pocket scope I used to take birdwatching with my son before things got complicated. At full zoom, the window was like a stage. She poured wine. Red. 2 glasses. She was wearing something casual but not business casual. Not her usual conference attire. She laughed. Leaned in. Touched his shoulder. He didn't touch back, yet. But the comfort was there. The mutual rhythm. Not a first-time mistake. A ritual. I waited until they turned their backs. Then I left. No scene. No confrontation. No explosion. I stopped at the CVS around the corner. Bought a cheap notebook, a disposable camera, and a bag of trail mix I didn't need. Back in my room, I started taking notes. Timestamps. Observations. Patterns. I wasn't losing control. I was building a case. See, I realized something on that walk. She wanted to be caught. Not obviously. Not consciously. But in the way someone forgets to lock a door when they're hoping the wind pushes it open. The photo she sent had him in the reflection. Not clearly, but just enough to plant a seed, if you were looking. She knew I'd be looking. And she underestimated what I'd do when I found out. But here's where it gets better. When she texted me later that night, crazy day. So tired. Let's talk tomorrow. I didn't confront her. I replied, sounds good. Love you. Let her think I bought it. Let her sleep next to her little secret. Let her think she still had control. Because the truth is, I'd already set the trap. And she walked into it the moment she let that curtain drift open. You think that's twisted? We're just getting started. At 7:15 the next morning, I watched her exit the building with the same man. She was dressed in a blazer this time. Hair in that half-effort bun she used when she wanted to look competent but casual. He had a messenger bag slung over one shoulder and a smug sort of pace that didn't scream colleague as much as it whispered co-owner of the lie. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. The silence between them was already worn in, like an old couch, something you don't think about until it smells off. I followed at a distance. They took a right at the corner cafe. She ordered something with oat milk. He nodded and paid. Details. Small, useless, but later they'd matter. People don't remember what brand of coffee they were drinking when their world implodes, but I would. And eventually, so would she. They split up at the crosswalk. She headed toward the convention center. He disappeared into some boutique hotel on Beach Street. Interesting. He wasn't even staying with her. That told me 2 things. 1, they were cautious enough not to keep their mess in one place. And 2, he had resources, separate booking, separate transportation. So this wasn't some drunken fling. It was curated, rehearsed, probably had a history. I circled back to my room, checked on the kids. Still asleep, cartoons playing on low. My daughter had fallen asleep with crayons stuck between her fingers. That part, her quiet trust, her absolute belief in the version of the world we sold her, hurt more than the damn window scene. I opened my laptop and started digging. She wasn't stupid enough to use our shared accounts. But I knew her, knew the slipstream of her brain, the same passwords she recycled, the cloud storage she used for work files. The private trip notes, folder she always renamed, but never truly hid. And there it was, under Q1_budget_pitch. A spreadsheet, but not a financial one. It was a schedule, color-coded, labeled with innocuous headers. D. MTG, on 3 of the 5 nights she was here. D didn't stand for department. It wasn't director. It was him. That's when it clicked. This trip wasn't about the pitch. She was the pitch. She'd sold him something. Or maybe he sold her something. But either way, they'd been building this in parallel to our life. Not replacing it. Not destroying it. Just duplicating it. Like some knockoff handbag you wear only when you're out of town. And the worst part? Her sister knew. Buried in the notes section of one calendar block was a line. Ask Elaine to cover for Monday night. Kids think I'm flying back late. Elaine, who texted me just last week asking if I needed help picking a gift for my wife's birthday. Elaine, who sat at our kitchen table 2 months ago, playing Scrabble with our kids while I grilled burgers on the patio. Elaine, who smiled like she believed in all of it. My hands didn't shake. No rage. Just this strange, clean clarity. Like cold water over the brain. I closed the laptop, grabbed the camera, and crossed the street. At exactly 8:57 a.m., I walked into her hotel. Did I go to her room? No. I went to the concierge. Hi, I said. My name's Dan Palmer. My wife is staying here, Stephanie Palmer. I left my cufflinks in her bag this morning, and she's already headed to the convention center. She'll kill me if I show up without them. Could I grab a spare key? Just for a second. The man smiled, typed something, hesitated, then asked me for ID. I slid mine across. The name matched hers. The address. The wedding ring. The polite smile. He handed me the key. And just like that, I stepped into her sanctuary. Room 1814, where the sheets were still a little warm, and one of his socks, black, no branding, was tucked under the armchair like a piece of forgotten evidence. I stood in the middle of the room and took in everything. Her makeup bag was open, her perfume bottle half full. The second wine glass was on the windowsill, rinsed but not washed. Then I found the notepad. You know the ones they leave next to the phone, branded with the hotel's logo? On the top page, faintly pressed from handwriting that had been torn off, was an impression. I angled it to the light. It read, Room 403. Thursday. No calls. It wasn't her handwriting. He had written it. He left instructions. And she followed them. I slid the notepad into my bag. I didn't take pictures. Not yet. That wasn't the move. Instead, I took something subtle. Something she'd missed just enough to question herself. Her ring. She always left it in the porcelain dish next to her toothbrush when she traveled. Said it got sweaty when she worked long days. She'd always put it back on before bed. But not tonight. Not after I slipped it quietly into my pocket. Let her wonder. Let her scramble. Let her think maybe she misplaced it. Or maybe, just maybe, someone had been there. Because the next move wouldn't come from me. It would come from her. And I needed to see what lie she'd tell when she realized she'd been seen, without ever being confronted. She texted me that evening around 6:42 p.m. Simple. Long day. Just ordered room service. Miss you guys. Give the kids a hug from me. Room service. Right. I stared at the message for exactly 11 seconds before replying. They made you a card today. You'll love it. Sleep well. I didn't ask how her pitch went. I didn't mention the convention. I didn't reference the ring. And I sure as hell didn't ask why she didn't FaceTime the kids if she missed them so much. People make 2 kinds of lies. Ones they build in the moment, and ones they rehearse. Hers were always the second kind. The kind you can smell when they're too smooth, like wet marble. I knew she was sitting in that hotel bed, glass in hand, probably next to the same guy from last night, wondering whether I suspected anything. That was the entire point of the text, to measure my pulse. And I gave her nothing. Not even a heartbeat. At 7:15, I slid into the lobby bar of the boutique hotel on Beach where he had vanished that morning. The place had the kind of overpriced wood furniture that looked handcrafted but wasn't, and a bartender who looked like he judged your shoes before making your drink. I didn't order anything. Just sat at the far end, pretending to scroll my phone. And there he was. He came down alone. Gray blazer. No tie. Hair still wet from a shower. He didn't skin the room. He just moved, like a man too confident to hide. He wasn't handsome in a classic sense. More like practiced. Like he knew how to appear valuable. That made sense. Stephanie had a type. I watched him sit at the corner booth and pull out a small leather journal. He scribbled in it for 10 minutes, occasionally glancing at the bar, at the entrance, never at me. I took a picture of the journal. Not his face. Just the journal. One that I recognized. Because my wife had one just like it, she used it for brain dumps, as she called them. Her therapist gave it to her last fall when she said she was feeling emotionally detached. Detached. Right. Turns out, the therapist's advice worked. Just not in the way anyone expected. When he left, I followed. Not closely. Not urgently. I wasn't interested in confrontation, I wanted data. Observations. Signals. And this guy left a trail like someone who had never been hunted before. He stopped at a florist on 9th, bought a single calla lily. Interesting choice. Not a bouquet. A calla lily. Most people don't know what they symbolize. Death, or rebirth, or depending on the context, guilt. He tucked the flower carefully into a folded napkin and walked back towards Stephanie's hotel. My pulse didn't spike. My feet didn't falter. But inside, I filed it away. Thursday. Room 403. No calls. It was still Wednesday. So who was in 403 tonight? The front desk was easy. Too easy, honestly. I booked a room under a fake name. Not an alias, just a common one. Said I was in town for a vet tech seminar and needed to be close to the conference center. They handed me the key to 409. 2 doors down. Perfect. My room had a side view of 403's door. I left the lights off, slid the desk chair against the wall beside the peephole, and waited. At 8:47 p.m., she appeared. Not Stephanie. Elaine. Her sister. She walked up to 403 in a denim jacket and slacks, no makeup, hair in a ponytail. Knocked 3 times. Waited. He opened the door. They hugged. Not a romantic hug. Not even long. But it was there. They didn't go in immediately. They stood in the hall. Whispered. Then she handed him something paper. Maybe a letter. Maybe money. Maybe notes. And then she left. He went back inside alone. And for the first time since this started, I realized. It wasn't just an affair. It was a network. Elaine was involved. Not just covering. Participating. Coordinating. What exactly, I didn't know yet. But you don't pass secret notes to your sister's affair partner and then walk off like it's a PDA meeting. No. This was deeper. At 9:26 p.m., Stephanie entered through the side stairwell. I caught only a glimpse. Hair down now. Black coat. She didn't knock. She used a key. She walked into 403 like it belonged to her. And that's when it all locked into place. Her room wasn't where it happened. It was the alibi. For 03 was the real stage. Rented under another name. Registered with his card, probably. A space off the books. No cameras in the stairwell. No front desk questions. No paper trail leading back to her. So I did the only thing I could. I waited. Until midnight. And then, I knocked. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I didn't expect her to open the door. That wasn't the point. But they both froze inside. I heard it. The sudden mute of voices. The scrape of a chair leg. The long breath someone took to steady themselves. I slipped a hotel-branded envelope under the door. Inside it was her ring. No note. No message. Just the ring. Then I walked away, without turning around once, and left the hallway empty behind me. Let her sit in that room with her perfect little plan. Let him stare at that ring and wonder how deep I was in. Let Elaine check her phone in panic when Stephanie texts her. Because now the rules had changed. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know what I wanted. And worst of all for them, they didn't know what I'd do next. Stephanie didn't text me the next morning. Not at 7. Not at 8. Not even by 10, which was her usual, just heading into meetings routine. Radio silence. Like a deer frozen mid-step, not sure whether to bolt or pretend to be a tree. She wasn't just stunned, she was recalculating. Rewriting timelines in her head, trying to figure out where the breach happened. That ring under the door? It didn't just say, I know. It screamed, I've been closer than you think. And yet, not a word from her. Which was beautiful. So I dropped the kids off at the aquarium. San Diego has a nice one. Big tanks, timed feedings, educational kiosks. My son was fascinated with the cuttlefish. My daughter asked if dolphins can fall in love. I told her yes. They're some of the only animals besides humans who cheat. She didn't get it, but I did. While they wandered with the staff-led group, I drove to Elaine's place. It wasn't hard to find. She'd been living in the same condo since her divorce. Corner unit. Garden gnomes she claimed were ironic, but deep down, she thought they were charming. She was home. Her gray Camry was in the same crooked spot she always parked it in, two wheels slightly over the line like a toddler's crayon drawing. I didn't knock. I waited across the street, watched her come out around 11:20, sunglasses, yoga mat, a protein shake in one hand, and a look on her face like someone trying very hard to look like nothing's wrong. And then something odd. She opened her trunk, reached under the mat, and pulled out an envelope. Slim. Sealed. Slid it into her gym bag before locking the car. I took a picture. Timestamped it. Then I drove off. I didn't need to follow her. Not yet. Whatever was in that envelope wasn't going to explode in the next hour. But it told me something valuable. Elaine was a courier, not a passive bystander. Not just a cover. She was actively shuttling pieces of this thing between them. Probably had been for a while. That meant they trusted her. That meant she had leverage. And leverage, my friend, is a fragile thing. I got back to the hotel at noon. The kids were still out, and I had exactly 1 hour before Stephanie's next move. She finally broke the silence at 12:47 p.m. Hey, just saw your text from last night. Sorry, I was out cold. Ring's missing. Did I leave it at home? There it was. The test. Casual. Almost flippant. Not, hey, my wedding ring vanished from my hotel bathroom. No. She was probing. Hoping I'd say yes. Hoping I hadn't seen what she knew I saw. I stared at the message for a full minute, then typed. No idea. Haven't seen it. Short. Dehydrated. No emotional flavor. She'd taste that silence from 1,000 miles. Then I added, we're thinking of heading home early. Aquarium's kinda mid. Everyone's tired. The silence after that message stretched for almost 2 hours. I didn't press. I didn't check my phone. I played Monopoly Junior with the kids and made sure to lose. My daughter bought 3 train stations. Ruthless. When Stephanie finally called, I let it ring twice, then picked up like I hadn't been waiting. Her voice was light, fake casual. Hey, are you really thinking of leaving early? Yeah, I said. Not much to do here. You've got work stuff anyway. A pause. Barely noticeable. Then, I'd love to see you all before you go. Maybe dinner tonight? Oh, I said. That depends. You alone. Silence. And there it was. A hairline fracture. Not enough to collapse her story, but enough to make her wobble. What? What do you mean? She asked. You've been busy. I wouldn't want to intrude. She tried to laugh. You're not intruding. Come on. I miss you. The kids. All of it. Sure. Sure. We'll see. Then I hung up. No goodbye. She called back twice in the next 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Let her sweat. By 5 p.m., she was standing outside our hotel. Not her hotel. Ours. Wearing jeans, no makeup, that same anxious expression she got when we were audited last year. She rang our room and smiled big when I opened the door. Hey, she said, like we hadn't spoken in weeks. The kids ran to her. She hugged them hard. Too hard. She was looking at me over their shoulders the whole time. You look tired, I said. She blinked. Yeah. Long days. Didn't sleep well? Pause. Not really. Maybe you lost the ring in your sleep. Another pause. This one stretched too long. You sure it's not at home? She asked, too evenly. You sure it didn't end up in room 403? Her face twitched, just one muscle under her eye. She laughed it off. What are you talking about? I smiled. Forget it. Kids made you something. And I handed her the drawing. 2 stick figures, mom and dad, holding hands, standing in front of a tall building. A kid on each side. Above them, a big, fat heart. My daughter even wrote, family trip, across the top in glitter pen. Stephanie looked at it like it was radioactive. I leaned in, lowered my voice just enough. They still think you're the hero in this story. Don't make me prove otherwise. She didn't answer. Couldn't. And in that moment, she knew the ground beneath her life wasn't solid anymore. Because the truth had teeth now. And it was circling. She didn't leave that night. She should have. She had the chance. Right after the kids went to sleep. Right after I casually asked if she was going back to her hotel or just staying with us since, after all, we booked a double. I even offered her the spare key. She hesitated. Said she had to check emails. Instead, she sat on the corner of the bed, scrolling her phone like it held a map out of this mess. It didn't. All it had was a mirror. Every app, every contact, every pixel full of reflections she thought she controlled. At 11:03 p.m., after the kids were sound asleep and I pretended to be too, she stepped into the hallway and closed the door soft. I gave her a head start, then followed. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs, quietly, 2 floors up, to the hallway that faced hers. From the shadowed end of the corridor, I watched her silhouette move across the glass door of the adjacent building, his building. She didn't go to the front desk. She didn't knock. She entered through the service hallway, the one used by housekeepers and catering staff. You don't use that entrance unless you've used it before. You don't slip into the shadows unless you're hiding something or someone. I waited 20 minutes. Then I walked back down and sent one message to a burner email I'd created earlier that day. To daniel.marchand.consulting@gmail.com. Subject, Calla lilies wilt fast. You may want to keep that in mind. No signature. No trace. Just a breadcrumb. And then I went to sleep like a baby. Because in the morning, he responded. At 7:14 a.m., to that burner inbox. I don't know what this is about, but please stop contacting me. This is inappropriate. Oh, Danny boy. If only I'd said something personal. But no. Just a flower. Just enough for his brain to itch. And now? He'd panic. Because whoever sends anonymous messages referencing specific gestures isn't guessing. They're watching. And panic breaks patterns. At 9:42 a.m., Stephanie left our hotel with the kids to grab breakfast. She offered me to come. I declined. 10 minutes later, I watched from the rooftop terrace as Danny boy exited his hotel with a suitcase. Not a weekender. A full roller. Packed heavy. Wearing sunglasses. Walking like a man who had just Googled emotional manipulation and come up short. He didn't head toward a taxi. He walked 3 blocks down to a co-working office labeled Pacific Edge Solutions. Never once looked up. So, not leaving town. Just moving the pieces. Good. Because so was I. Back in our hotel room, Stephanie had left her bag. And I'd already placed a very small, very casual item in it. Something she'd never notice, but would notice being gone. A leather key tag. It wasn't expensive. Just personal. It had our wedding date etched on one side, and the phrase, "found you, forever," on the other. I gave it to her years ago after a camping trip where we got lost trying to find our car. She kept it in her purse. Always. Until now. Because this morning, while she laughed over pancakes, I slipped it out and replaced it with something better. A printed receipt. Hotel room 403. Guest name, Daniel Marchand. Third-party card authorization. Guest added, Stephanie Palmer. For nights. No incidentals. I left it right where she'd eventually find it. Wedged between her lipstick and her chewing gum. No note. No explanation. Just facts. She wouldn't confront me. Not right away. She'd wonder when I'd placed it. She'd wonder how much I knew. And most deliciously, she'd wonder if I'd already told the kids. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. It isn't the act. It's the quiet. The silence between the cracks. The waiting for the explosion that may never come. By 1 p.m., Stephanie was visibly unraveling. She'd made 3 separate excuses to check her phone, laughed too loudly at things the kids said, and called Elaine twice under the guise of asking about dog food brands. At 2:14 p.m., I stepped out for air. I walked straight to Elaine's condo. This time I knocked. She opened the door, instantly pale. "Dan," she said, too fast. "You've got mail?" I replied, and handed her an envelope. Inside, a photo. Not of the hotel. Not of room 403. Just a blurry zoomed-in shot of her hand, passing something to Daniel outside the elevator. And below it, a sticky note. "Still think you're a spectator?" She tried to speak. I stopped her with a look. "Just be ready when I call." Then I turned and walked away. Because that's the game now. No yelling. No scenes. Just whispers. One piece at a time. And eventually, they'd collapse under the weight of their own choreography. Elaine didn't call. She didn't text, didn't email, didn't even attempt one of those polite check-ins where she pretends to care about the kids' allergies. That silence was its own confession. She knew the photo wasn't a bluff, and more importantly, she knew it was just the first. That night, Stephanie suggested we go for a walk to clear our heads. Code 4. I need to figure out what you know without admitting anything. We walked along the Embarcadero. Families, dogs, people licking gelato. The usual Sunday illusions. She talked about maybe taking a few days off when we got home. Said the trip had exhausted her. Said she missed normalcy. I let her speak uninterrupted because every sentence was a breadcrumb, and I wanted to see where she thought this trail ended. She never mentioned the ring, never mentioned the receipt. Instead, she said, I know things have felt strained. Maybe we should try a couple's retreat. I stopped walking. Is that what Daniel recommended? I asked, low and sharp. Her face didn't change. That was the most disturbing part. No gasp, no denial. Just a small inhale through her nose, like she'd been preparing for this exact moment. Who? She said flatly. I smiled slow. The man whose hotel bill is now in your purse. Come on, you haven't checked yet? Amateur. Stephanie didn't move. She stared at the water, jaw tense. You've been following me? No, I said. You've been walking in circles so small you forgot I know the map better. A long pause. Then, finally, something cracked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I laughed. You're quoting a bad soap opera now? I'm serious, Dan. No. You're cornered, Steph. Don't confuse that with sincerity. Another pause. Then the pivot. Is this about the kids? Bingo. She'd gone for the nuclear button. Tried to flip the script in one sentence. Because if you're trying to build some kind of narrative against me, I cut in. You brought him into our lives, Stephanie. Not physically. Not yet. But emotionally. You invited him into our house every time you checked out of a conversation with me and smiled at your phone. I stepped closer. You want to weaponize the kids against me? Go ahead. Try explaining why your sister is passing handoffs to your affair partner in a hotel hallway. That hit. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. She wanted to deny it, but the scaffolding had already rotted through. I don't know what you think you've seen, she began. I interrupted again, softer this time. Steph, you're not in control anymore. I'm not the guy that reacts. I'm the guy that documents. You should have cheated on someone dumber. And with that, I walked away, left her standing there, stuck between denial and damage control. By the time I got back to the hotel, my burner inbox had 2 new emails. The first was from Elaine. Subject, we should talk. The second? From Daniel. Subject, I don't want problems. That one had a zip file attached. I scanned it on a separate machine. Inside, recordings. 3 of them. Audio clips. Low quality, but clear. Stephanie. Talking. Laughing. Whispering. Dan's so predictable. I swear, sometimes I think he wants me to cheat just to feel something. Followed by Daniel's voice. Well, it's not cheating if the marriage is dead, right? She giggled. And right there, at the 42-second mark, was the sound of Elaine's voice. You two are dangerous. If this blows up, don't bring me into it. Oh, honey. Too late. I didn't play the third file. Not yet. Some things are better held until the right moment. Because the noose doesn't tighten in one pull. It tightens slowly. Click by click. Whisper by whisper. And I had just started pulling. Elaine showed up the next morning with sunglasses, no makeup, and that distinct look of someone who hadn't slept but was trying to pretend she had. She asked if we could talk privately. I told her no. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I wanted her to squirm in the full presence of what she'd enabled. The kids were watching cartoons in the next room, and I made a point to leave the door half open as I handed her a mug of coffee she didn't ask for. I didn't know everything, she said quietly, eyes darting between the open hallway and me. Of course you didn't, I replied. That's why you coordinated hotel rendezvous like a nervous intern and passed notes like it was a high school theater production. She looked down, then pulled out her phone. Look. I have screenshots. Calendar entries. Texts. Some stuff you might want to see. Oh, Elaine. I leaned forward, voice low. You're not here to help. You're here to negotiate. And I want you to understand something important. You're not holding cards. You're just another file in the archive now. She stiffened. I just don't want this to affect the kids. There it was again. The chorus. The great anthem of the guilty. Think of the children. That makes two of us, I said. Which is why I'd advise you to start talking, not spinning. Because I already know about the envelope in your trunk. I know about room 403. And I know you were in the room when that third recording was made. Her eyes went wide. Bingo. She hadn't heard it yet. Daniel had blind copied her out of the drop. Good. I wanted to see her hear it for the first time with me. I played the third file on speaker. It started with background noise, ice clinking in glasses, the hum of a TV in another room. Then Stephanie's voice again, slightly more tense this time. I don't know how long I can keep this up. He's been quiet. Too quiet. Daniel, that's good. Quiet means he's not gathering ammo. Elaine, unless he already has. You said he was a details guy. Stephanie, he is. It's like living next to a landmine. You never hear it ticking. Daniel, then you need to get ahead of him. You said the kids trust you more. Elaine, guys. Seriously. If this turns into a custody thing, I'm out. Stephanie, relax. He won't risk that. He's too rational. Click. The file ended. Elaine said nothing for a full 15 seconds. Then, that's taken out of context. I nearly laughed. You don't get to context your way out of conspiring to undermine someone's fatherhood, Elaine. I didn't say anything illegal. No, but you said enough. And that's the kind of gray area where reputations go to die. She stood, flustered. What do you want from me? I didn't answer. I handed her an envelope. Inside, a list of contacts. All of Daniel's clients. How I got them. That was another little side project. See, his consulting firm listed testimonials, and I traced metadata from an old portfolio PDF he'd left publicly indexed. Rookie mistake. Email 2 of these, I said, and tell them you're no longer comfortable associating your brand with Daniel Marchand. No detail needed. Just that. Use your own name. She shook her head. You're insane. No. I'm efficient. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, the next thing that leaks might be a little more audible. I tapped my phone. I don't want to ruin your life, Elaine. I want you to understand what your involvement costs. And right now, it's 2 emails. That's the price. She sat back down, pale. After this, she whispered, I'm out. I nodded. You were never in. You were a glorified errand girl. Her lips tightened, but she didn't argue. And she didn't walk out. She emailed the clients at 11:36 a.m. Line CC'd me, as instructed. Both replies came within the hour. Polite. Corporate. Vaguely disturbed. One canceled their upcoming retainer. The other asked if she could jump on a call to discuss. That was the crack I needed. Daniel would notice by sunset. And I wanted him rattled. At 6:12 p.m., Stephanie cornered me in the hotel room while the kids were brushing their teeth. What are you doing? She whispered. I turned slowly. Would you prefer a PowerPoint? Dan, this is going too far. No, Steph. You went too far. I'm just flipping on the lights. She lowered her voice even more, as if volume could repair what exposure had destroyed. I don't know what you want. That was the truth, for once. She really didn't. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't ask for repayment. It asks for redefinition. And by tomorrow, she'd start to realize it. She wasn't just losing me. She was about to lose the version of herself she thought she could hide behind forever. Stephanie cracked the next morning. Not in the way movies love to show it. No dramatic breakdown. No tear-streaked confession. No screaming fit in a lobby. No. She cracked like glass under pressure, slow, quiet, and absolute. It started at breakfast. She over-buttered the toast. Didn't touch her coffee. Her hands were too steady. Controlled steady. The kind of steadiness that only comes when someone's trying not to shake. Did you talk to Elaine? She asked, eyes fixed on her fork, stabbing scrambled eggs she had no intention of eating. I took a sip of my orange juice and nodded. She dropped by. Return something of yours. She flinched. Just barely. But it was there. The kids were chatting about sea otters and tide pools. Stephanie kept nodding at them like she could still function in their world. But she couldn't. Not really. Not anymore. That soft parental safety bubble she wrapped herself in was gone. Popped. And she knew it. After breakfast, she suggested we go to Balboa Park. Said it would be nice to reset. Her word. like we were a browser tab that just needed refreshing. But while she wandered through art exhibits pretending to be engaged, I got the alert I'd been waiting for. Daniel had posted a statement, a vague, manicured, corporate-flavored apology on LinkedIn. Something about recent misunderstandings, unprofessional entanglements, and stepping back to reevaluate partnerships. The language reeked of a man trying to extinguish a fire he didn't start, but definitely poured fuel on. I screenshotted it and sent it to Elaine with a single line. That's one. 2 more to go. She didn't reply. She wouldn't. Not yet. I slipped my phone back in my pocket and watched as Stephanie knelt beside our son at an interactive science display. She smiled, pointed at a model of tectonic plates shifting. Fitting. At 3:10 p.m., as we walked past the rose garden, she asked, "When we get home, what happens?" I didn't answer. "Dan," she pressed, "I know you're hurt. I know you're angry. But we have to decide, what's next?" "What's next?" I repeated, like I was tasting the phrase. She nodded. So I gave her something. "Next is when you sit down with the kids and explain why we're selling the house." Her eyes darted sideways. "What?" "I've already spoken to a realtor." Quietly, discreetly. "It'll be framed as a financial decision." Which, in a way, it is. You can't just. "I can. You're not on the deed. You signed it over 3 years ago when we refinanced. Remember?" She blinked. She remembered. "Dan, this is insane. That house is the kids' home." "Exactly. And they'll have a better one. One without ghosts in the guest room." "I made a mistake." "Stop calling it that," I snapped. "You don't schedule mistakes. You don't book hotel rooms under other names for mistakes. You don't use your sister to traffic paperwork for mistakes. This was a project. And now I'm shutting it down." She fell quiet again. And then she whispered, "Are you going to tell them?" "You mean the kids?" I asked. She nodded. I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough. "No, I'm not telling them. You are." She froze. "They're not going to hear from me that their mom engineered a romantic side business while pretending to be on conference calls. You're going to sit them down and figure out how to tell the truth without making them hate you. Let me know how that goes." "I can't." "You will," I said flatly. "Because if you don't, the next thing that lands in your inbox will be that audio file. Labeled clearly. Password-free. Attached to a group message to you, me, and our lawyer." She stared at me like she'd never really seen me before. Because she hadn't. She thought I was the type to snap, yell, cry, beg. But I was the type who documents, who tracks timestamps and fingerprints and receipts, who moves quietly until the ceiling caves in. And now, the ceiling was creaking. That night, back in the hotel, I found a letter tucked inside my laptop case. Handwritten, folded in thirds. My name on the front in rushed script. Inside, "Dan, if you release that audio, you'll destroy me. Not just with the kids. Professionally. Personally. I'm begging you. Please. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't nuke my life." No signature. Didn't need one. I burned it in the hotel sink with a match from the complimentary kit. Not because it was dramatic. Because I didn't need threats. I already had the detonator. And she just confirmed how close I was to the target. The next morning, I moved the queen. I had waited long enough. Watched them twist. Watched them bluff. Watched them try to get ahead of me with half-truths and professional damage control. But what none of them realized was that this wasn't about exposing them anymore. It was about isolating them. One by one. At 6:33 a.m., I sent a text to Daniel from a number he hadn't seen before. "Check the foundation. It's cracking." Attached, a cropped screenshot of the LinkedIn comment section beneath his pathetic reputation management post. One of the commenters, a real estate analyst out of Austin, verified, had written, "Is this the same Daniel M. from the 403 story going around?" That's all it said. But it was enough. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. That was the brilliance of letting the cracks spread organically. Plant enough seeds in enough inboxes, and eventually someone will water them by accident. He called Elaine. She didn't pick up. He called Stephanie. And that, my friend, was the final gift. Because she answered it on speakerphone. I was sitting right there, in the hotel kitchenette, stirring sugar into my coffee. The kids were still asleep. I made no movement, no expression, just let the audio roll like it was background jazz. His voice was low, rushed, tense. You told me you had it under control. Stephanie, equally tense. It was under control. He was quiet. I don't know how he got into your accounts. Daniel, you're joking, right? You think this is about email? My clients are dropping off. My name is getting whispered in forums I haven't logged into in 5 years. Stephanie, I'll handle it. Daniel, you can't handle him. That's the problem. You've never been able to. That last line. Chef's kiss. Her face shifted, like someone just kicked her self-image straight in the kneecap. Then he said something that made her jaw clench. You should have told me how cold he is. She ended the call mid-sentence. I took a slow sip and said, I liked the part where he compared me to a glacier. Very poetic. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. I let a full 2 minutes pass, then handed her a flash drive. Everything I've collected is on here. Copies of the audio, screenshots, timelines, the works. She took it like it was radioactive. Why? She asked. Why give this to me now? Because you're going to walk into our lawyer's office next week and admit full custody should go to me. You'll request visitation. You'll make it sound noble, like it's your decision, like it's for the kids. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. And in exchange, I said quietly, I won't destroy your professional reputation in one push of a send button. I won't email that file to your boss, or your board, or the foundation you just applied to join last month. She shook her head, dazed. You wouldn't. That's revenge. I leaned closer. No, revenge is emotional. This is logistics. She looked down at the flash drive like it held her spine. You're bluffing, she whispered. I smiled. Then I pulled out my phone. Tapped twice. Up came a live GPS tracker map. Daniel's location, currently en route to San Diego International Airport. I turned the screen to face her. Last ping was 2 minutes ago, I said. But don't worry. He's running from something now. Not toward you. Stephanie slumped into the chair like her muscles had finally gotten the memo. And then she asked the question that I knew would come eventually. The one all guilty people ask when they've run out of deflections. When did you know? I looked at her. Not cruel. Not smug. Just done. 6 months ago. You mentioned a conference that didn't exist. You said you had to fly out Sunday night, but your boarding pass said Monday morning. She blinked hard. You went through my email? No, I said. I looked in the trash. You forwarded it to yourself and deleted the original. You forgot to clear the trash folder. She let out a soft exhale, half shame, half awe. You were waiting this whole time? No, I was documenting. And now I'm curating the fallout. She stared down at the flash drive in her palm. It looked heavier than anything she'd ever held. What if I go down swinging? She asked. Then swing, I said. Just understand who's holding the stadium lights. And I left her there, sitting in a hotel chair, holding her own obituary, written not in blood or fire, but in data, silence, and one quiet, relentless man who stopped playing defense a long time ago and had just started moving into checkmate. She tried. Oh, she tried. 2 nights after I handed her the flash drive, she made one last move, the desperate kind. The kind that comes when someone realizes they've been walking on a glass bridge and finally hears the first crack. She waited until the kids were asleep. Waited until the lights were low and the mood could be softened with nostalgia. She poured 2 glasses of wine. My wine. The exact brand I'd stopped drinking over a year ago. She didn't know that. She never noticed when I switched to bourbon. She just remembered what used to work. She sat on the hotel balcony, barefoot, wrapped in a cardigan she hadn't worn in years. One of those soft, memory-laced ones she used to throw on during movie nights when things were still good. The kind of thing that says, look, I'm still me. Please see the version of me you once trusted. I didn't touch the wine. She did. 3 sips before she spoke. You're not who I thought you were, she said. Voice low. Heavy. I didn't look at her. I just watched the city lights shift in the bay. No, I said. I'm who you hoped I wasn't. Silence. Then, I loved you. I didn't stop loving you. I turned to her slowly. You just outsourced it. She closed her eyes like she could slow time that way. I thought you'd break. Scream. Cry. Something. I was ready for that. I had a whole folder of excuses lined up. I know, I said. That's why I didn't give you the scene. Just the silence. She leaned forward, desperate now. I made a mistake, Dan. I was lonely. You were always working. The kids, the pressure, the routines. I lost myself. And there it was. The final fallback, victimhood. The emergency exit for emotional arsonists. I stood up, calm. You didn't lose yourself, Steph. You hid yourself. And what's worse, you built a version of me in your head that you could cheat on. Not the real me. That guy? He noticed. He recorded. He waited. She blinked. Her voice cracked. I'm scared. I crouched down in front of her, eye to eye. You should be. She looked away. I didn't. You thought betrayal would make me weaker, I said. But all it did was make you visible. You were a black box for years. And now? Now I see everything. The patterns. The whispers. The cross-stitched lies between your day planner and your perfume bottle. She said nothing. Do you know how long it takes to kill trust, Steph? She finally met my gaze. How long? Exactly one lie told with calm eyes. I stood and walked to the sliding door. Tomorrow morning, we go home, I said. The lawyer will meet you Monday. Be on time. Dress like a mother, not a brand. Dan, you'll get holidays. Alternate weekends. You'll write a narrative for the kids that doesn't blame me. You'll keep your job, for now. And you'll pretend, very convincingly, that this was a mutual decision. An adult evolution. You'll smile in the Christmas photo like you didn't destroy your own house from the inside out. And what if I can't? She asked, nearly whispering. I stepped inside, pausing at the curtain. Then the fire starts. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because it was over, but because the trap was finished. The noose was set, and in less than 24 hours, the final weight would drop. Not on Stephanie, not even on Daniel, but on someone neither of them saw coming. Because I wasn't just unraveling a marriage. I was cutting loose the root system of their lie. And one name, one voice, buried in the recordings, tucked between the timestamps, had just surfaced. And she didn't even know she was about to become the final nail. Elaine. Elaine showed up at the house 2 days after we got back, wearing a scarf like it could hide her identity, big sunglasses, and that strange half-smile people wear when they're not sure whether they're attending a funeral or an intervention. I didn't invite her in. I didn't have to. She was already inside the story. She stood on the porch like she expected someone else to show up and take responsibility for what she was about to do. Instead, I opened the door and handed her a thumb drive. No envelope. No ceremony. Just one file. Labeled simply, Elaine_call_edited.mp3. Her hand froze. What is this? I stepped outside, shut the door behind me. You said you didn't say anything illegal, I said calmly. You were wrong. But don't worry, I edited out the worst of it. She stared at the tiny device like it might burn a hole through her palm. Dan, she said, whatever this is, I'm not involved anymore. You were involved the moment you became logistics, I replied. The moment you told Daniel which stairwell to use. The moment you whispered in Stephanie's ear that maybe he's just distracted enough to miss it. That wasn't commentary. That was strategy. She opened her mouth. I raised a finger. Save it. This isn't a plea deal. This is a courtesy. Courtesy, she scoffed. You're threatening me. No. I'm offering you a chance to come clean before your employer hears that same audio, where you explicitly advise your sister how to get around custody exposure. Her face dropped. You wouldn't. Why does everyone say that like it ever worked? She shook her head, suddenly angry. You don't get to torch everyone's life just because your marriage fell apart. That's not justice, Dan. That's theater. Maybe, I said, stepping closer. But you bought the front row seat. You don't get to pretend you didn't applaud during the first act. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Because the real twist? That file wasn't even real. The original recording existed, but Elaine never said anything legally compromising. Not yet. But I'd stitched just enough silence between her real lines to suggest she had. And that thumb drive? It was blank. Just metadata and a label. It was never about releasing anything. It was about watching her react. And she gave me everything. The panic. The admission. The cracks. Because that's the thing about accomplices, they don't break under exposure. They break under anticipation. Elaine left that porch 10 minutes later, face pale, calling someone before she even got in her car. Probably Stephanie. Possibly Daniel. Maybe both. Didn't matter. What mattered was what happened next. Because that night, I got a text from a number I hadn't saved, but instantly recognized. Daniel Marchand. I don't care about her anymore. You win. Name your number. I'll wire it in the morning. Just delete whatever you're planning. There it was. The white flag dressed as a bribe. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I opened the folder on my desktop labeled Failsafe. Inside, 34 documents, 2 spreadsheets, 6 recordings, and one final file, titled To Release If I Disappear. Call it paranoia. I call it insurance. Stephanie had tried to manipulate. Elaine tried to deflect. Daniel tried to buy silence. But none of them asked the right question. Why had I waited? Why had I built it all up, piece by piece, without ever going public? The answer? Because I wasn't aiming for revenge. I was aiming for replacement. I didn't want their apologies. I wanted their positions, their leverage, their networks. And in part 12, I take them all. I met Daniel at a coffee shop he didn't choose. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. He arrived alone. No briefcase, no laptop, just his phone and that Wall Street shrug he thought made him immune to consequences. You got my message, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. I did. Name your number. No. He blinked. Excuse me. I don't want your money. I want your position. His mouth opened, closed. You're stepping down from Pacific Edge Consulting. Today, I continued. You'll write a letter. Health reasons. Burnout. Whatever fiction you like. I've already pre-drafted one, polite, regretful, includes a quote about seasons of change. Just change the name. He laughed, nervous. You're not serious. I slid an envelope across the table. He didn't touch it. Inside is a contact list. Your investors. Your PR rep. Your pending acquisition. Any of them hear what's on those recordings, you don't just lose your job. You lose every future one, too. You won't be toxic. You'll be erased. You destroy me just to spite her? This isn't about her anymore, I said. It's about control. The thing you and Elaine and Stephanie passed around like a beach ball while smiling for the camera. I'm just taking it back. He didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at the envelope. Then finally, what do you want me to do? Step down. Publicly. Quietly. Transfer contacts to your deputy, Grace. She's competent and, more importantly, clean. Then disappear. And if I don't? I smiled. Then your quote about seasons of change becomes a headline with sound bites. At 4:17 p.m., he sent the announcement. By 5:03, 3 of his clients emailed their teams. Transition notices. By 6 o'clock, his LinkedIn page said former managing director. I didn't post a thing. I didn't leak the audio. I didn't need to. I just updated the file name from failsafe.zip to archived. Stephanie found out around 7 p.m. She stood in the hallway holding her phone like it had personally betrayed her. You did this. No, I said. He did. I just let him. She didn't cry. That well had run dry. Instead, she sat down at the dining table and stared at nothing. What happens to me? She asked. You become exactly what you chose to be, I said. A cautionary tale with a carefully constructed smile. And the kids? They're with me. You'll see them on weekends. I'll tell them you're brave for admitting your mistakes. You'll nod and play along. That's the deal. She didn't argue. She just whispered, what do I tell people? That the marriage ended because of distance. And time. And irreconcilable silences. And what do you get out of all this? I looked at her flatly. Everything you thought I'd never notice. And none of the guilt you hoped I'd drown in. Elaine went quiet after that. She declined 2 speaking events, pulled her Instagram, and started going by her maiden name again. Daniel's firm restructured. Grace stepped in, took over, promoted diversity and ethics and trust. Stephanie kept her job, technically, but she doesn't lead anymore. She follows. Quietly, carefully, like someone walking through fog, hoping no one recognizes her silhouette. And me? I didn't start over. I just deleted everything that didn't serve me. Not loudly, not cruelly, just efficiently. One clean sweep. One last file renamed. Family_2023 revised_final_clean. The story ends not with an explosion, but with silence. My silence. Because now, I own the quiet.